Good morning, Patrick. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Taina?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm so excited to be talking about your upcoming course on EMDR and couples because I get this question all the time. But first, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience for anybody who doesn't know you yet, where you're working, and what types of clients you work with.
Sure. My name is Patrick Monette. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and also a certified EMDR therapist and EFT, certified for emotional focus therapy for couples therapist. And I have a private practice located primarily in Northern New York, but I also am licensed in Florida. And I work primarily with adults. An overlying umbrella would be people that are struggling with different aspects of trauma, complex trauma, over mental health, anxiety, depression, especially addiction or compulsive related issues, and couples, and how to integrate. One of my biggest focuses is how I integrate EMDR into everyone that I work with, whether it's individuals, groups, or couples.
Wonderful. And can you tell me a little bit about your consultation groups? Because I know I send a ton of consultees your way because they say, I want to ask this question about couples. I'm like, oh, please don't ask me. Please ask Patrick.
Sure, I try to make it flexible. So I have a standing group every Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time, from 12 to 1, sort of like a lunch pack and go. I know people are busy, so it's 12 to 1 every Wednesday, and you can just sign up on my Calendly and then it just get you registered. I also do a 2-hour group that's every first Saturday of the month from 12 to 2 Eastern Standard Time. And once again, that's on my Calendly. And then I've had some people, in addition to individual consultation, I've also had some people who will get together and say, "Well, we can't meet those, so could we do a mini group?" So I do a lot of impromptu mini groups as well. I try to be as flexible because as a therapist, I know how busy it is, so we try to offer
Yeah,
as much as we can.
wonderful. And I'll make sure that we have the links to what you're referring to available underneath our chat.
Okay, wonderful.
Um, you are going to be doing an advanced training for Touchstone. And I was wondering if you could tell us more about that, if you could tell us who this is intended for, and what kind of ways it might prepare clinicians to work better with this population.
Sure. So the course that I'm offering in April is called Recipe for Love: Integrating EMDR into Working with Couples. And I have worked with couples since grad school. I've always loved it. It's always been amazing and powerful and complex. And then when I learned EMDR, I remember my training. I was so excited. It's like, how do we integrate EMDR into this? And the trainer was like, "Oh, it's going to be on the last day," and it was maybe one slide in the PowerPoint. And I was like, "Okay," I was so green as an EMDR therapist. I was like, "All right, we'll figure this out." And for years, I looked for different trainings. I looked for different ways of, how can I incorporate this? And just like I think when we're training people in EMDR as well, as we've gone over in our trainings together, you just have to jump in and you just have to try it. So over years of, and when I'm teaching anything, I always talk about I'm going to share my failures and my mistakes so you don't have to make them,
Yes.
and also my successes. So hopefully you can learn from both aspects of my experiences. And being able to create this course was actually a dream that I wanted to do for a long time because I needed it. And so I have been working with other people, a lot of consultees who I feel need it as well. Um, and I wanted to create a course that was sort of like a step-by-step process of how do you actually integrate EMDR into working with couples, because it's one thing to integrate EMDR into your regular therapy practice, but when you're specializing with a population of couples, you're you're dealing with a lot of moving parts. And what I wanted to create in this training is how do we the biggest question is, can you do EMDR with couples? And going back to my roots, it's like, well, when you say EMDR, there are 8 phases. So what are you specifically asking me? And then I explain, yes, we can do EMDR with couples. Let's go into the different variations of how to do that. And I created the course to explore how I've integrated EMDR into all 8 phases of the AIP model.
Oh,
Because I've been in trainings where, and I've seen trainings and different things, good and bad, but to see it all the way through, I haven't seen that. It might exist, I just may not have found it. So when people are taking this course, I want them to be able to say, when I see a client from phase 1 to phase 8, I'm going to have an idea of where to start and how to really integrate this into my practice.
beautiful, beautiful. And the target audience or the people who you are aiming this for, can these be people who have just completed their foundational training? Is this for people who are further along in their work with couples? Who is the biggest beneficiary?
I would say, that's a good question. I would say, if they've just because I'm thinking of people who are in between parts 1 and part 2, if you've taken at least part 1, you will understand everything I'm going over.
Wonderful.
I wanted it to be generic's not the right word. I wanted it to be inclusive of wherever you're coming from, because even, our basic trainings are different, right? We all have different flavors and different approaches. So if you've done at least the part 1 of your training, you will be more than prepared to be able to understand and see how to integrate it. I've had some people are saying, well, do I have to be trained as a couples therapist? And that's completely up to the individual. I would say, if you're going to take this course, you're either thinking about working with couples or you've had some experiences. The focus isn't to teach you how to do couples therapy, because there should be some understanding that, and that's its own specialization, um, in being able to pull from your experiences.
One of the things I find, and Patrick, for our audience that doesn't know this, you also work with the perinatal population. So for
Yes, and
some
being
of us who I
sorry, go
was
ahead. I
just
cut
gonna
you off, Dana.
no, no, no worries. I was just gonna mention that some of us really specifically will say, like, I don't work with couples, and then we realize, actually, if you have a partner, this is part of a system. So we might need to involve some different strategies. And I think that a lot of the things that you have talked about when we discuss specific populations in foundational EMDRs has really leveled up my practice in working with people who have these additional factors in their lives.
Mhm. It- and it's hard to sometimes when you're working one on one, because you're just hearing one side of the story. And even if you're not necessarily working with couples, especially in the perinatal world, you are working with couples in a lot of the cases. And you're working with family dynamics, right? So even though this course is focusing on specifically couples, there are going to be a lot of techniques that you can incorporate into any aspect of your EMDR practice.
That's wonderful. That's a good point. There are some. Are there any considerations that you think about when you're thinking about the different stages of a couple's relationship?
Well, I think that gets taken into consideration in phase 1 and phase 2, when you're doing the intake of what is the presenting issue and what is the target, what's bringing you in to therapy, and sort of the assessment of diagnostically of, like, what is the presenting issue and what are we trying to work on here, and then going from there, so which we would do with anyone, right? But then being able to know, I don't know, I think what I'm hoping for people to take this training is that they feel confident of, I have this in my back pocket. I have this training. I know what direction to go into, because when you're working with couples, it's a different energy than when you're doing individuals, because you are creating a secure, hopefully safe place for two individuals.
Mm.
And that means different backgrounds, different mental health, different everything, and they have a common goal to work on the relationship. And what I've seen in my research when I was creating this was I was missing that trauma informed component, even with like EMDR
Mm.
therapy. Like, it was just sort of missing of. So when couples are coming in, it's usually because things aren't going well. And in integrating the AIP model has transformed the way I do the intake, the way I connect with both partners, the way that I develop that therapeutic relationship with both of them. And being able to really look at in the bigger scheme is, can I do EMDR with this couple? Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be doing reprocessing, but I can
Mm.
definitely benefit. Definitely pull from the wisdom and the education of EMDR, of the AIP model, of resourcing, of skills, of being able to help partners understand one another's reactions, especially if there's severe mental health or trauma involved. I feel that it's difficult for couples to find really good resources for that.
You mentioned sharing your from your experience, both failures and wins. Can you give us like a mini snippet on one thing that you've learned from and one thing that was a success for you?
um Let me see here. I think going too fast would be a mistake of like, oh, I know EMDR, I can do EMDR. Like when we first started, it was like, I can do it, I can move my fingers, I could like it's okay. Resources isn't that important. Like, let me just like we can
Mm.
just wave this away. Um Rushing it and not taking the time that I needed, because some cases when you're working with couples, there's an intensity there. Like, we don't one or both of us really don't want to be here. In a lot of cases, how many I get asked this a lot, is how many sessions is this going to take, even before I've met you? It's like, well, let's meet first and kind of see what's going on. So sometimes, you can pick up on that anxiety as a couples therapist, and you have to really slow it down of, yes, they're anxious, but that doesn't mean I have to like respond to the anxiety. One of the things that have worked really well is teaching them resourcing skills, EMDR specifically, of incorporating, bilateral or dual attention stimuli related resources into their lives. And I think when you're first taught EMDR, when you go over phase two, I've just seen this for years. It's almost, because there's so much information there, it's almost like a checkbox, like calm, safe place, container, light stream, da
Right.
da da. And what I do in this training is I go through really slowly of when I'm teaching my people resources, it's not one and done. It's an ongoing process. And I follow up, I check in, I make sure that they understood me. When I'm teaching it to them, I make sure that I've taught it properly. I'm a fast talker, so I want to make sure that I haven't overwhelmed them. And I'm also asking them to learn a new language. And I want to be respectful of that. So going into it with that spirit of uh, being able to teach them evidence based skills that I have found to be transformational for their relationship,
Mm.
because then they have something to do outside of therapy. That's what couples I find are hungry for, is what do we do when you're not around and stuff's about to hit the fan? Like, how do we prevent these really bad moments? And being able to use phase two resources has given them has fulfilled that need.
I love that point because no matter how amazing of a therapist you are, you're usually only there for a couple of hours a month.
Right. Going back to what, one of your questions of with the perinatal population is, what do you do when there's been a loss? And you drive by a school, or you drive by and you get hit with that reminder. Or I see this a lot of, you walk into a grocery store and it's Mother's Day or
Mm,
Father's Day or kindergarten graduation, and it's you're hit with that bomb of, oh my gosh, I'm reliving this loss again. I'm reliving this tragedy again. And this is what I love about EMDR is it's not about not, you're going to experience it, you're going to feel the pain, but we can give you tools so you're not drowning by the pain.
yeah.
And that's, when I learned EMDR, one of the things that I fell in love with is I walk my talk because I use the skills and I know they work for myself. And I know what it's like to be in therapy and you're waiting for that session because it works and it helps. But then what do you do when you're in excruciating pain, or both of you are in excruciating pain and your session's not for 1 or 2 weeks? I want clinicians to be able to give their clients something so they can function without us.
Do you know it's really easy for me to meditate when nothing is wrong?
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
So I think that that's a really great point. And one of the things that I share with my clients is we're just exercising that muscle because then when you need it, it's going to be there
Yes.
when it's challenging. A success story, something that you've accomplished that you're really proud of, whether it's professionally in general or with your clients.
I would say, um I wasn't prepared for that question, Dana. I would say I'm gonna go back to how to integrate phase 2 and helping couples, let me be specific here, work through difficult moments and reconnect faster
Mm.
with a more stable foundation, and that I'm there to guide them, but they are able to do it without me.
And I feel like you just recently developed a tool to help people called Romance 101.
Yes. I'm always thinking of different ways of, how do I, sort of like, in the old cartoons where you have the little angel, little devil, and I'm their little EMDR angel. So it's like, how can, and over years you hear, you take in of like what are clients needing and, what resources can I give them? So I wanted to do something fun. I'm launching this February 1st, inspired by Valentine's Day, but it can be used any day, any time of the year because romance doesn't have a definitive day. So Romance 101 is a 14-day program I put together for $14 because what I wanted to do is create something that was for couples that that fit into every aspect of a budget that a couple might have:
Awesome.
time, energy, willingness, money.
Mhm.
Couples may have one of those, like we have the willingness, but we don't have childcare, or we don't have kids, but we don't have the money to, like all the different things. So I wanted to create something that would be, in all aspects of the budget, that would be simple, that will help you not only as an individual have some introspective on yourself relating to your relationship and how to be romantic, but how to connect to your partner on a deeper emotional based connection. So, in launching it on the first, people will be able to sign up. They just have to email me the word love, and then I'll register them. And then on the first, after they get their welcome letter, it'll just show up on your email for 14 days. Every day you get a reflection and sort of like I wanted it to be a little thought and emotional provoking of related to one aspect of romance relationships and passion, and one activity to do with your partner that
Mm.
day. So it's sort of just like, I mean, I grew up Catholic, so it made me think of Advent candle calendars. Like it doesn't have the chocolate in it that I would be into, but it does have the sweetness of this is how you deepen your connection.
Ah, I love that, and I love that you really do integrate accessibility to that because, ooh, potentially having small children around and working, in different gigs and just not having that time piece for that
Yes,
connection. So, yeah, I'll be signing up for that, and I'll be sharing with our audience
awesome.
um, where they can get that info. And then you're also just kind of speaking to other clinicians who might be interested in this training. You're doing Hold Me Tight.
Yes, I offer it when I started offering for people who don't know, Hold Me Tight is a emotional focus therapy based program. And as I said at the beginning, I'm a certified EFT therapist, and I fell in love with Hold Me Tight.
Mm.
And it's one of the programs when I have people do, calls about Hold Me Tight, or they want to know what's different a little bit than therapy. It's what's nice. This is going to sound a little counterintuitive. It's not therapy. It's an educational program.
Mm.
And I actually like that a little bit better because it complements if you've had therapy, couples therapy, it complements if you're in therapy, which is a very unique thing because usually, it's counterindicated, just like, like medications, like don't do this while you're driving. It's like every I would say, I've said this to people, I've never met a couple that couldn't benefit from this program.
Wow.
And I was about to, this was years ago pre-COVID, where I was going to offer it in person and try to find like a nice location, everything. And then 3 days later, the world shut down. So I said, well, couples are going to need this more than ever. And so I offer online, and I call it like a group option. But I live in a small community, so I was like, how do I take something a need here and
Mm.
make it global? So I offer it through Zoom, but no one else has their cameras on. So you, like, for example, if you and your partner were doing it, like no one else would know that you were there,
Oh
and
no.
you're getting to sort of take the class with me. You can interact with me through the chat or through emails if you have specific questions. I offer that support as well. I broke it up into 8 weeks, just as you were saying, because a whole weekend may not be doable. It's an hour and a half on Saturday nights, 6 to 7:30 Eastern Standard Time for 8 weeks, and that way it's manageable. And what's nice is I have a lot of people who have kids, so they can be at home with their kiddos. They don't have to
Wow.
worry about a sitter, or they can say, "Hey, this is when we're going to put on, Bluey, or we're going to put on your favorite show, and we're going to be doing our date night over here."
Wonderful.
So I wanted it to become as flexible as possible, so that way any couple would be able to do it and benefit it. And what's powerful about this is it's not just a band-aid. It really gives you the structure and the ingredients to create the best recipe of love for you and your partner. So I always tell when I'm starting it, say, I'm going to be giving you all the ingredients and all the utensils. You get to decide as the couple what you want to make. So if some people are dealing with intimacy issues, so we focus on that. If some people are dealing with unresolved issues and wounds from the past,
Mm.
I will teach you how to do that. There are literally in the program scripts, and I'm always, as therapists, we're always like, oh, role playing. We're a little bitter about it, but these are good. These are like how to give you a secure language to express yourself, especially if you
Mm.
struggle with emotional language or being vulnerable. I love this for people who don't like therapy, because I don't want you to be someone you're not in order to have the
Mm.
relationship that you want. And I think when people are going into therapy, there's a lot of fear. You're going to choose my side, or you're going to choose their side, or you want me to cry, like all of those stigmas that we
Right.
see in therapy. This eliminates it. And I have seen it transform relationships that are on the brink of extinction.
Wow.
Because when you utilize it and integrate the steps, it gives you hope again, and it helps you to remember how and why you fell in love with your partner.
That sounds amazing. And I also love the fact that you refer to it as giving people the ingredients because you and I are often talking about food. So that seems pretty on brand. Now, how about I am not angry?
Right.
Oh, was I delayed? Sorry. um, how about I am not angry? Because that's one that you
Yeah,
recently
there's a little
taught
delay,
at
but it's
Touchstone.
okay.
No, no worries. Um, so,
Yes.
um, just not too long ago, you recently taught this class live. I'm hoping that you're going to teach that live again, but there is now a self-paced version of that course. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and who that's for.
Sure. So I am not angry. How to use EMDR with anger management. And it's I have taught anger management since I entered the field, since grad school again. Couples and
Hmm.
anger management simultaneously. And what I have found in my experiences is there is a missing component in the mental health field where clinicians are afraid, and that's my word. Sorry, I don't want to be. Let me rephrase that. Sorry, not afraid, but they don't incorporate anger
Hmm.
in their intake. If
Yeah.
someone's presenting, and what I was finding, Talina, is, the more people I saw that were presenting with depression and anxiety, and I've done the medication, I've done the treatment, and it's not getting better. They all had a trauma history. And I said, "So how do you deal with anger?" I just started asking one day of like, well, because I was angry for them when you hear their story of like when someone's been violated, it's like you just have that initial inclination to be like, I feel violated, I feel that anger for you. And they had never been asked that. They had
Wow.
never been taught it's okay to be angry. A lot, and I'm sure we've all seen that it's all about a lot of the therapeutic languages. We want you to be calm and peaceful. And, it's like, well, I want to break shit. Like, I'm angry. I don't want to be calm. Or, like you were saying, when you're meditating, I can't meditate or be calm when I need to erupt because the pain is there.
Yeah.
And what I've seen, I'm going to go back and clarify, the using the word fear, is I have seen clinicians, I think of colleagues I've worked with, who, because of their own trauma history that they've never addressed, anger scares them.
Oh, yes. Even I have heard some people say, "Well, I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to create the problem." And I'm like, "No, you're
Yes.
recognizing the
Yes.
problem."
I don't want to make them angry, or I don't like conflict, or I
Yeah,
don't want them to not like me, or I don't. It's all of these other things, but that stops their growth.
absolutely.
That's when we have to do our work, and we have to be able to learn how to build that balance instead of running from it, embrace it. And so creating the course of being, I wanted to be able to say anger is just, when you're looking at a cake, it's the frosting on the cake, and we need to figure out what that cake is made of. And
Yeah.
if we don't do that, then I believe it holds back the individual's healing.
Thank you for sharing that. I do want to ask a question about your podcast.
Sure.
Can you just remind me what it's called? I think it's Friday Night Feels.
Friday night feels, yes.
Friday Night Feels. Okay, tell me a bit about Friday Night Feels.
So Friday Night Feels, I began March 2020 when the world shut down. And I had no idea what I was doing. And so I'm like, we're just going to jump in and start this. And I have done it for 3 years. I took a little hiatus this fall to regroup, and I wanted to reorganize a bit. And it was when it started, it was a bi-weekly show focusing on general mental health and wellness and connecting. And I would have guests. I've had guests. I have, I think, over 85 episodes over the 3 years, 3 4 years. Um, Guests from all over the world. It's just been, it was amazing. It's been amazing. All different aspects, from helping parents whose kiddos sleep is a disaster, to life coaches, to addiction specialists, to all sorts of fascinating people. Um, and what I've been changing it to a little bit is gearing it a wee bit more towards men's issues.
Mm.
And being a man and seeing some of the things that I've experienced, personally and professionally, I wanted to use the platform to be able to say, "Hey, let's address some of these issues of, some of the good things that are involved with men, and some of the issues that are affecting us as well, and how can we have open, healthy conversations about that." So we're getting ready to start some new episodes in 2024, but just need to organize a few things. But it's all, I have my YouTube channel, and it's also, so you can see the videos, but it's also on all of the podcast. Um, I can't even think of the word, platforms, Spotify and everything, where you can listen to it as well.
I think that that speaks to something that is so important that some people don't consider, which is when we have experiences that our clients have had, when we look like our clients, when we share some experiences, not that our clients need to know that, but it lends, I feel like this level of safety. So a father going to see you might look very different than a father seeing me.
Right.
So I'm so glad that you're able to open um, that lens out to the community.
Oh, and yeah, it's been a humbling, beautiful experience.
Mm. I can't wait to see more. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience about your upcoming EMDR with couples course or any of your other happenings?
Well, what's nice is that, is once again, I know how busy people are, so I will be offering it live in April, and then the goal is to turn it into on demand, safe paced. I know how hard it is to take a day off for full training, so being able to still take the course and watch it at your own leisure was really important to me. And then hopefully, offering it live in the future. The Hold Me Tight, I'm starting in March, and people can contact me. And I offer that in the group, but I also offer that in private options as well. So for some people that might want a little more individual support and care, I can do that as well. And I'm just really excited about the Romance 101, and seeing where that leads. So those are some of my adventures for right now.
Wonderful. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for meeting with me today and talking about all the exciting things that you have scheduled for the year. I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me, Taina. It's always lovely spending time with you.
Same.